For some of you watching, having an ADHD attention span means you won't even make it to the end of this video. Since you discovered that you have ADHD, you've probably viewed it as a negative thing. You have framed it as an anchor that drags down various parts of your life, your work, your relationships, and your health. And it's true, ADHD doesn't come without its challenges. But there's a side to ADHD that very few people talk about, and that's the benefits. And oh boy, are there some benefits. I can guarantee you one thing. By the end of this video, you will have a clear understanding of just how powerful your ADHD is, how much of an advantage that it gives you in certain areas of life, and how you can leverage your ADHD traits to have a more fulfilling life. By the end of this video, you will even be proud that you have ADHD. Now let's kick this off with a short story. Back in 2008, scientists went to Africa and they tested for ADHD traits in African tribes, in Kenya to be specific. They looked at these tribesmen and they assessed those that had high levels of ADHD traits and those that had low ADHD traits. They found that the tribes with ADHD were more prosperous and more successful. Their ADHD gave them the sense of adventure to travel further and take on more risks. So when there were crises like there was a drought or a famine, the tribesmen with ADHD would travel further, willing to explore new lands, and they eventually found food and water to sustain their tribe. So we see a really clear message here. ADHD is not a disorder, it's an evolutionary advantage. Now, it may not feel like an evolutionary advantage to you today, and that's because we live in a very rigid structure. You go to school, they put you in a classroom, you have to sit still for 8 hours, you have to follow strict rules and wear an uncomfortable school uniform. Or let's say you've grown up, you go to work, you have to follow a very rigid 9 to 5, you have to be paying attention in certain meetings and abiding by certain hours. It's not congruent to the traits that an ADHD person has. This rigid, inflexible way of living is inevitably going to clash with your ADHD, which wants to go out and explore the world. Because on the flip side, here's the beautiful thing. When you pursue a hobby that you're really passionate about, when you go down a career path that really taps into your natural talents, success isn't a possibility. It's a natural consequence of aligning who you are with what you do. Let me give you an example. There's one career path in particular which has really high rates of ADHD compared to the average population, and that is the emergency services. I'm talking paramedics, police, firefighters, and so on. Now, why would these jobs have high rates of ADHD among their staff? The reason is because your ADHD brain is perfect at dealing with high pressure, stressful situations. Imagine you're walking down the street and a car comes flying past and crashes into another car. There's carnage, there's chaos, there's people running around, people flapping everywhere. 5-10 minutes later, an ambulance arrives. The ambulance pulls up, the sirens are going off, there's chaos, the ambulance door opens, the paramedic steps out as cool and calm as a Sunday morning. Everyone's still flapping about, it's chaos. The paramedics assess the scene, go and treat the wounded, keep people calm, secure the area, make sure everything's safe. That paramedic quite likely has ADHD or ADHD traits. And when you're in a stressful situation, your ADHD brain actually calms down. Because that chaos of the situation is so stimulating, it ends up releasing dopamine in the brain, and dopamine is what makes you focused, it makes you calm down. And it's the same reason why you see people with ADHD represented in other extreme situations like Olympic sports and the military. Now you might be saying, Adam, I'm not in the emergency services, how does this benefit me? And fair point, but there are some other situations that are high pressure where you will see your ADHD shine. Looming deadlines, situations where you have to perform within a short time frame, such as exams, combat situations, financial trading, and finally, stressful emergencies involving yourself, your friends, family. Believe it or not, your brain has an advantage in these situations over the average person. And this is something you should be proud of. Now, the reason why your brain is at an advantage in these situations is because it enters a state that's called hyperfocus. And this is the next reason why your ADHD is your superpower. Hyperfocus is when your brain enters a state where you can complete a task and work on a task for a long time without breaking your concentration. It is most activated when you have a very clear task or a very clear goal to achieve. Now, let me ask you, have you ever been in school or university and you've had an essay to complete and you left it to the last minute? Maybe there was a day or two left to complete this essay and you realize, oh my God, I really need to get this done. So what you do is you pull an all-nighter. You start writing in the afternoon and then the evening, and then you keep going. Maybe you have a Red Bull or two, but your brain is able to just keep going and keep writing this essay until you get it done. It might be 1,000 words, 2,000 words, but you eventually get that essay complete and submit it on time. That's because your brain has entered hyperfocus. There's a very clear goal, complete the essay. There's a very clear time frame, I have 24 hours left. Your ADHD brain will enter hyperfocus to make those two requirements meet. The reason hyperfocus is so powerful is because when you are truly motivated and passionate about something, you are unstoppable. I have friends with ADHD and they will go away and do a coding task and they might disappear for 2 days. We won't hear from them, we won't see them. 2 days later, they've built some amazing website or they've built some amazing tool using code. Your ability to tap into your hyperfocus and effectively use it in your life, in your work, in your your passion, in your hobbies is gonna be a massive game changer. So far we've looked at how your ADHD is your superpower in terms of your sense of adventure, your ability to handle stressful situations, and your hyperfocus. Now, the next positive trait that you will have is an interesting one because it often gets overlooked, and that is resilience. Yeah, that's right. You, with an ADHD brain, you are more resilient than the average person. Firstly, your resilience comes from existing in a world that is not made for you. This rigid, neurotypical world, it just clashes with your personality. And so just getting by, getting through the average day and the average job is a challenge, and that breeds resilience. Secondly, a natural consequence of this resilience is as you're going through life and you get knocked down here and there time and again, you're more willing to pick yourself up by the bootstraps and get going again. Your resilience will keep you going through tough conditions where others are likely to quit. And this resilience is key because the world out there is not trying to help you so much. You know, we see the medical industry will keep you on a waiting list for years to get diagnosed, to get a prescription for your medication. And when you finally do, they slap you on the back and say, all right, good luck, mate. Off you go into the world. You get no guide on how you can thrive in life with ADHD. And the pharmaceutical industry, they're even worse. They're happy to keep churning out stimulant meds and making money off you. So when you do finally get diagnosed with ADHD, you're left with loads of questions about how this affects you, how this affects your friendships, your family, your relationship with sports, and your career. Fortunately, your questions need not go unanswered. I'm putting together a load of videos on how you can maximize your finances, your relationships, and your health when you have ADHD. So hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.